First of all, we are so blessed living in a country that we have workers' compensation, right? So when you get injured, there is something for you to hold on to, and you know that there is support.
This company wouldn't exist pretty much anywhere else around the world.
It's not like I'm going to go and tell my friend and say, being injured is so good, let's get injured. I'm saying injury is not fun, right? No one decides to be injured. Injured workers should not see the insurer as the enemy, which is not the enemy. I'm spending thousands of dollars on you and you still see me as enemy? How's that possible?
Yeah. If you were in charge of that, how would you do?
I would say,
That's Dave.
I think so. I think so. I'm a deep person.
Welcome to the AusRehab podcast. My name is Steven. I'm your host. And we have Matt here. Beautiful Matt, handsome Matt, to talk about psychological claims. He's a registered psychologist in New South Wales. He's been in trade for... Actually, no. Go into it. Like, give a 1 minute introduction as well.
Sure. By trade, I'm a psychologist. I'm a registered psychologist in Australia. And I have been working as a rehab consultant in the personal injury space for about 6 years. And then I switched into seeing the clients who are injured as a psychologist. But I'm involved at the same time in the rehab space because of my personal interest in the space. And I think it's a place that we can make a difference if we do our best,
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Let's go dig in. Hard questions. What's your opinion of psych claims?
Side claims. Okay. I actually watched your previous episode, and you were coming up with some numbers that the number of the claims are increasing, psychological claims increasing. Also, the duration of the psychological claims usually is out of proportion compared to the physical injuries, and they even cost more, right? Which I think the duration and cost go hand in hand, right? It's very complicated. I think it's a complicated topic because we know for a fact that the psychological injuries are happening in the workplace, right? And but first we have to look at what happened. Why suddenly they are increasing? Are we injuring more people at work? Which doesn't make sense because at the same time we are trying to tighten our work health and safety regulations and make sure that we pay more attention to the psychological injuries in the workplace, right? So, well, there are other theories as well. They said, okay, after COVID, everyone has become more sensitive and their nervous system has become oversensitive and they are getting injured or they're feeling psychological impact of life in general, including work more, right? But on the other hand, we have to see how the claims are getting accepted and what goes under psychological injury, right? So I think that is important because as the treatment team here, we are trying to work on someone who has work with someone and help someone who has been genuinely injured at work and they need our assistance to go back to work, right? But on the other hand, our resources are limited. So some of these claims that they are not being managed well, whether through the initial stage where they have to accept the claim correctly, or they have to start early intervention or approve treatments. We have to look into that. I think those things are making the duration of the claim or the complexity of that. And I think, again, it's a very complicated topic, but we can look at some of the factors one by one, because I think there are so many factors involved. It's not one item.
What factors are you talking about? Like, go deeper.
Okay. Let me make it simple, right? Let's start from scratch, right? Someone is at work doing their job. They are dealing with daily challenges of life. They have the life outside work and they have their work life, right? Challenges are always there. You have to pay your bills, you have to pay your mortgage, you have relationship issues, you have interpersonal issues. On top of that, all of that happening at the same time in the context of you spending the bulk of your day at work, right? But most people manage it, right? Most people manage it. They settle in the job, they build a routine, and despite all those difficulties, they manage. They go forward, right? Then suddenly something happens in the workplace, something that it's genuinely distressing to them, right? To answer your question, what are those factors? One of the main things is we have to understand that this person was already going through so much to make life as simple and as normal as possible. Something happened to them that usually it's out of their control, so it disrupts their normal life, right? Life changes suddenly, right? I think understanding that is the first step in managing a claim efficiently and effectively. Understanding that none of these people wanted to be injured, right? They didn't wake up one morning and say, today is the day that I'm going to get injured at work. No, they didn't. No, they didn't, right? No. So it was kind of forced upon them, right? Out of, well, I'm not going to say they're not at fault. Obviously, anything that happens in the workplace, it's a relationship situation, right? It's two-sided, but doesn't change the fact that they got injured, right?
Correct.
Now that they got injured, I think understanding that is the first step in managing a claim, right? And if you want, I give you an example why I think that's the first important step is because the question arises for how do we treat this person? First is we have to believe that this person is suffering, right? This person is suffering. And it's a big impact on their life, right? Not undermining or underestimating that impact is very important in managing the claim. Why I say I think that's the most important step is because I think sometimes that's not being understood very well, right? By the treatment team, by the rehab team, or by the insurer. Do you have a follow-up question?
No.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to ask a follow-up question, but I can tell you again why I think that is the case, right? A psychological claim comes through, right? The person is the first time in their life they're putting a claim in. They've been working for 15 years in their industry. They had no idea what it is. One day these issues happen at work and they become injured. They go to the doctor, they say, look, I'm feeling so anxious. Yesterday at work I had panic attack. And doctor for the first time says, it might be that for the first time the doctor tells them, that's a panic attack. They go like, what is a panic attack, right? They're like, what you feeling exactly? That's a panic attack, right? So lots of items are new to them. And then the doctor says, you need to submit a workers' compensation claim. You know, this is a workplace injury and you have a claim, right? So these are all new along the idea that this person is already distressed because of what happened at work, right? So someone coming, usually what we do, someone is distressed, we say, oh, calm down, take it easy, things going to get better, but not in the context of claim, right? The person comes and says, I'm injured, we go like, okay, so now we're starting a claim. And claim has a whole process, it's so novel to them and they have no idea what's going on around them, right? What is this process? It's the first time I never heard of workers' compensation. I don't know what it is, right? And then that becomes I think it really hinders recovery and it makes the situation worse.
You mean like them being exposed to new things, essentially like completely new process?
At the time that they are not ready for it, they don't have the capacity for it. Because they are already distressed. Whether it's a physical injury, you have a broken arm, you're not going to be happy about it. You are in pain, you are worried whether it's going to recover, you have a surgery in a week time, right? So you're already preoccupied, right? Or it's a psychological injury. You are already going through panic attacks, or you're having anxiety, or you're depressed because of the situation. So your resources are limited. That's why the novelty of the workers' compensation claim is just it's like salt on the wound, It's adding to the problem. It's not taking away from the problem.
Is this what you see across the board?
I would say 90% of the time. 90% of the cases, the claim itself is not helping with the recovery, right? And I want to make a disclaimer as well. First of all, these are not, I don't have numbers. I don't think they are facts. These are what I see, okay? In the context of those years that I worked in this space, this is my personal experience as someone who's intimately working with them, right? I would say a rehab consultant or a psychologist is one of the people in this team that spending the most time face-to-face with the client. Because compared to a GP, you go to a GP, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you are done, right? But with your rehab consultant, you might be spending 2 hours a week, right? Yeah. With your psychologist, you are spending at least an hour a week, right? Yeah. So I'm saying this is intimate. That's why whatever I'm saying is my personal observation and my opinion about the matter. It may not be true. It may not be the fact, everyone's fact, but that's my experience.
But I'll assume that you will be a very good representation of what we see in the industry in general.
Well, look, I don't know how you want to look at it. I have worked maybe with, let's say, 600 injured workers so far, right? 600 injured workers. And for the past 2-3 years, almost exclusively dealing with psychological injuries, right? So I think it's a good sample size. Obviously, we can't generalize it to everyone, but it's a good sample size. And I can give you examples of what I'm talking about, so it becomes a little bit more concrete. Okay,
yeah.
Let me tell you this. I'll give you an example. This is a real life example. One of my clients, in the context of work, she has become injured because she perceived the communication with management as hostile.
Okay.
Right? Perceived it as hostile, and it had an impact on her life. And you have to remember, psychological injury, most of them, they happen over time. It's not very often that a worker is working and there is an incident today and suddenly you become injured. Most of our injuries, they happened over time, right? So you're going to work, today you feel like you are being discriminated against. You say, it's fine. You go to work next day. It's been 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, you're exposed to this environment. At some point, the client reach their limit and they go and see their doctor and say, look, I can't do it anymore. Every day I dread going to work, or I'm stressed about work, or I can't sleep at night, right? But anyway, usually they happen over time, right? So this person that I was giving you as an example, she felt like, okay, this is a hostile work environment. I'm being undermined. I'm being spoken over. So over time, she felt the impact, and she lost. And this is a person that she was very, how should I say, a very capable person, very, very social, very good with communication, very good with people. And now she notices that I don't want to answer phones. I don't want to talk to new people, right? So over time, she noticed that everything that's going on in the workplace having an impact on her.
Can I ask what job she was in?
She was in a tech company. She was working in a what they call it, fintech company,
yep.
And she was in charge of client relations, right? So client relations. So I think
accounts manager.
Accounts manager,
okay.
exactly. Yeah. So there was a lot of dealing with people involved, and now she barely wants to meet people. By the time that she's injured, I'm assigned as her rehab consultant, would be the one person who would be close to work, and she's actually genuinely scared, or she dreading meeting me. And I can see it. For the first time I see her, she's having anxiety symptoms. She's shaky. Her voice shakes. She's trembling, right? So a person who was absolutely social now can't meet one person. It took about 4 or 5 sessions. She becomes comfortable around me, right? So the example was this person genuinely injured at work. She's a very capable person. The moment she feels better, she's gonna go to work. She's very active. She knows what she wants to achieve. She has lots of aspirations, and she wants to get somewhere in her career. So she didn't want to be sitting at home, right? So she goes to doctor. Doctor says, let's start a claim. Obviously, you have to be off work. You have to receive treatment till you start feeling like yourself again, and you can carry on with your life. Sounds good. So far, so good, right? That's a claim process, and it's good. In the context of claim, the insurer start reaching out to her to start the process of the claim. And from day one, the injured worker perceived this communication with the insurer as inquisitive, suspicious, always. She might be wrong, don't get me wrong, she might be wrong, maybe it's her perception, but the perception was that they don't believe me. They're trying to catch me. They're trying to tell me that this is not a real claim and I'm not really sick.
Well, hold on. Are you saying that they actually said that? Or
No,
is
not
it just
like
implied?
that. That's what I'm saying. It's implied. And it might be absolutely her perception. Doesn't matter, right? Because that person who was doing this job, they have to be at least to some extent trained. I'm not saying they have to be a psychologist, but they have to be to some extent trained to be able to deal with someone who's going through a psychological injury, right? So you have to be careful around them. They're injured, right? So again, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not saying they did the wrong thing. I'm just saying they probably didn't have enough training or the understanding of a claim, or they're just following their legislation and their book. I don't know. But the end result is the client is perceiving this as they're always trying to, they're after me, which is exactly what shouldn't happen, right? Because just another disclaimer, when we are having this conversation, we would be pointing a lot of finger and say, oh, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. That doesn't mean that there are so many things right there, right? So the insurer, this is the funny things that I noticed during my job, doing this line of work. The insurer always is more often than not is the bad person. Insurer did this, insurer did that.
I know, which is insane because
because they're not. Honestly, they're not.
Most of the time, they're very good.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. They are first of all, we are so blessed living in a country that we have workers' compensation, right? So when you get injured, there is something for you to hold on to, and you know that there is support, right?
Yes,
for you to recover and get back to normal life, right? I know that for a fact because I'm from a background, right? That if, let's say, you're a painter and you're working in a building and you're painting the walls and you're climbing the ladder, right? You fall off the ladder, you break your leg. What they do, instead of supporting you on the way out, right, they will charge you for the ladder.
You have no idea how much I agree with. Because I've always been thinking, well, actually, for the past like 2-3 years, I've been thinking of this exact same thing. This company wouldn't exist pretty much anywhere else around the world.
Yeah.
Maybe with the exception of
some of the Scandinavian countries, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anything apart from that, no way.
No, and it's not just us. We are a small part of this system.
Yes.
There is the insurer, then there is the treatment thing and everything, right? So what I noticed that is ridiculous that we are so blessed and lucky to have all this system in place, and yet there is no one worse than the insurer usually.
Well, which is insane.
Right? Which is insane. Why? Because I don't think that they are doing as bad as they are perceived.
Correct.
Right? Definitely the system has flaws.
Yes. There's always bad players.
Of course. They are
always.
making mistakes. You are right. There are bad players, individuals, but this is a good system.
Yeah.
This is a good system. Of course, it can be improved, but this is a good system. So anyway, back to back to that example. So what happened? This person who was dealing with an anxiety that, in my assessment and understanding, she would have recovered from with treatment and maybe therapy sessions and medication. She would have recovered from within 3 months and go back to work. Mm-hmm. This took about 12 months.
12 months.
This took about 12 months for someone who would have recovered in 3 months' time.
What happened?
Well, that's exactly what happened. Those interactions with the insurer turned into a source of anxiety themselves. So it was less about what happened at work now, and it was about weekly interactions with the employer, with the insurer, insurer, right? And again, I would say that I was thinking maybe this is just in her head and she's perceiving it that way, but that wasn't the case because the insurer was running desktop investigation. The insurer was asking them to sign statistical declaration that they are not working and having other source of income based on facts that they were not facts. Like, for example, this person has a registered business to their name. Everyone can register a business here. You can have 15 businesses to your name and don't do anything, right?
Exactly, yeah.
This person had a business registered to her name, which was it wasn't a business to begin with. They had an idea at some point 5 years ago with her husband. They wanted to do a job. They started the company. They never did anything about it at all, nothing. So all they did was just register the business, right? The insurer was using that as I think you are running your own business in the meantime, right? All right, fair enough. Okay, you might be thinking that, but you ask them, right? First of all, just don't rely on that fact that they have registered the business. Go and see if there is any transaction, there is any activity. If you have to do an investigation, do it properly, right? Second is, you ask the client said no. They signed a stat declaration saying that I'm not working and making any income. And they asked her to do a stat declaration 3 times. Three times. They keep coming every time. For the same thing. For the same thing. Right? For the same thing. So now that's what I mean by understanding the client and understanding that she doesn't want to be there. She didn't want to be there. And that period of time, that 12 months time that she was dealing with this injury and recovery, it wasn't exactly picnic, for her, right? Dealing with all these stressors, it wasn't exactly picnic. Because I'm saying this person, all she needed was a little bit of treatment, a little bit of understanding, a little bit of medication maybe, and she would be back at work in 3-4 months' time.
That's a crazy story. So are you saying that the most of the blame would have been with the case manager? That
in this situation, yes, but I never like to blame the case managers. I think we should never blame individuals. We should blame system that the individual exists in, right? The individual applied for a job. The employer decided that I think you're good for the job, which would be the insurer.
Yes. Yes.
That would be the system. Is there any requirement for them to have some sort of training in this space?
I would assume there will be some training. I've never been through.
I would say most of the training would be administrative. Right? This is how we do it. This is how we do the claim.
Learning how to do programs.
Absolutely.
Blah blah blah.
It's not about interpersonal relationship. Yeah. And think about this way, and I know this for a fact. A claim manager studied business in university, came out, did few odd jobs, and now got a job as a case manager. What is your understanding? What is his or her understanding of psychological injuries?
Absolutely.
How much training has he received? Yeah. How many injured worker he has dealt with? Talking to an injured person who's going through daily stress is very difficult from talking to a person to your mate. It's very different. So in that sense, yes, the blame falls on the system who allows this person to have this job without training.
But the counter argument to that is, if I may, if we require psychological training for every single case manager dealing with psych claims, I think that's also very, very impossible.
It is. You are absolutely right. Then it brings us to the conversation that what is the problem with the system? Look, workers' compensation is a system, right? With every system, like any other system, it would have efficiency and effectiveness problems that you always trying to tweak it and improve it, right? On the other hand, to address this effectiveness and efficiency issues, you have to look at your resources, because we can't just do them by fixing them by looking at them and wishing that they're gonna fix. We need to have resources. And that brings us to what you said. One of the problem with the system is our resources are limited.
It's almost crazy.
Very limited.
As a owner of a rehab provider, hiring a psychologist has been easier in the past 2-3 years, but it's by no means easy.
No, it's not
at all.
Case manager is the same. They can't find case managers. They never have enough. They're always looking for case managers, right? So you're right. Having that resources is important. But the thing is, at least those ones that you have hired, maybe I'm not saying they need to be a psychologist. I'm saying they have to undergo some training that teaches them how to deal with the claim beyond the administrative aspect of it.
You know what? It actually reminds me of a conversation I had with the management team not long ago. And we're like, maybe we should go and start doing some sales trainings for the guys here, because I'm thinking, look, pretty much the problem that you were saying just then, it's no different to a sales issue. Like, imagine if someone comes in and said, does all the right things, ask the right questions. It's all sales. It's all scripted. Just ask these questions this particular way, and then be done with. I wouldn't say be done with it, but I think the results might be better.
Look, to some extent, I have to disagree with you because the issue arises from this person not understanding how to approach others empathetically, and I think empathy is something that can be taught to some extent.
Taught?
Of course, I think it can be taught because the reason I don't feel empathetic about your plight at the moment is because I don't understand your plight, right? The moment the plight is explained to me and I can put myself in that shoe and understand that what your experience feels like, then I would naturally be more. Of course, there is a different variation between people and how empathetic they are, but understanding your problem, your issue, your plight would be really helpful in inducing that empathy in me, right? So one of the things, look, I think you might have. I hope you might have noticed that I am passionate about this job, right? Where does my passion come from? From the fact that I was injured in the workplace, right? So I understand what it means, right? But now compare it to a 22 years old case manager who just finished university, been living with parent all the time, never fell off the bicycle, never hurt a knee or something, that haven't had a bruise on their leg. And we are talking about someone who has a vertebrae fusion, spine fusion in their lower back, right? He or she doesn't understand it. Doesn't understand how it feels, what it means to be in pain all day, every day.
Are you implying that we should start hiring case managers with like an age limit, like 40 years old?
No. Well, we can't do that, obviously. And then you get a 50 years old person who has never fell off a bike, right? But I'm saying that's what goes into the training, right? Just because you haven't lived it doesn't mean that you can't understand it. As long as I train you, case studies. Show them case studies. Show them how someone's life changes as a result of ongoing pain. I tell you something about pain. There are two type of pain. As you know, one of them is acute, one of them is chronic, right? Acute pain, I give you a pinch, it's acute. It hurts on the spot. It might be even rated at 9 out of 10, right? People tolerate that much easier, right? Because it passes, right? It passes, right? Then we have the chronic pain. It might be 2 out of 10, right? But it's been going on for 5 years.
Happens after like 40 years old.
You wake up, it's there. You go to bed, it's there. You're in a wedding, it's there. You're sad, it's there, right? That needs training. Understand that the person who has been dealing with pain for the past 5 years, how does life look like to them, right? The fear that the pain is 2. What if I do this and it goes up to 4 and remains there? Right? So this is something that I think it can be taught. So it's not about age, it's about how much you understand this process, how much you have understanding of injuries, what it feels like not to be healthy.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate on this. Say we start training people in general, not just case managers, like in general, across the board, on becoming more empathetic. What would that look like? As in, what would the system look like afterwards? Meaning, are we going to become a system of more claims, more empathy, more rewarding, like incentives that are, in my opinion, probably might be bad? Like, what would that look like?
I understand what exactly you're getting at. First of all, get it this way. If I'm an injured worker, right, and I'm going through this process, and I have a very helpful case manager who has been perfect, giving me information, giving me all the information that I need, helping me with all my needs, in terms of what's available in the system, right, within the system. I would say, why would it increase the number of claims? It's not like I'm going to go and tell my friend and say, being injured is so good, let's get injured. I'm saying injury is not fun, right? No one decides to be injured. Once they get injured, for multitude of factors, they may remain as injured for a long time, but I don't think hardly ever someone says, "Oh, my friend was injured. He had a blast. Let me go to work and get injured." I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I'm saying it's minuscule. You have to forget about it. It takes a certain type of person who choose being at work, having a life, and having everything, and putting all that aside and say, look, I choose to be injured and deal with treatment providers and insurer and rehab provider all day, every day, right? I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I'm saying it takes a very rare kind of person, right? Now you say, how does it look like? I think at the beginning, you're right, we may see some changes. It may increase the duration of some of claims, right? A claim that it was going to wrap up in, let's say, 4 weeks, which is very rare, right? It may take 20 weeks, but I think in the long term, it's better. In the long term, it's better because it's removing that added stress and anxiety, which is the claim process is causing and delaying the recovery of the injured worker. Does it make sense?
Yeah. No, like it makes sense because you might have a short-term issue, but hopefully that will improve in the long term. What other things do you think we should improve on?
Well, look, on that topic, this is what I was going to say, and look, I think it continues with that topic. First of all, I wanted to use an example about that topic. In preparation for coming in today, I wanted to talk to one of my clients, right, firsthand. I wanted to be fresh in my memory. I called, and this is the question I asked. I said, "Look, your communication is good. He's from another country, right? He's been living in Australia for 20, 30 years. And I was asking, you don't have any communication problem, right? I know English is not your first language, but you don't have a problem. He goes like, no, I understand everything. I said, okay, this is what I'm going to ask you. When you got injured, and this is a 60 years old gentleman, right? I said, when you got injured and they told you you're going to start a workers' compensation claim, you had no idea what it is. He goes like, no, it's the first time. I have heard there's something like workers' compensation, but it had nothing to do with me, right? I said, okay, what does that look like to you? What is the biggest issue that arises the moment that they tell you you can't work and you need to receive treatment? He goes like, uncertainty, right? And this is a psychological claim. He was assaulted at work, right? So it was like uncertainty because I don't know what is next.
Uncertain about the claim, uncertain about life.
Everything, about life.
Okay.
Right? Suddenly, because he had a normal life, a routine, right? Suddenly it got disrupted, right? Now everything becomes uncertain, right? I would go as far as saying your relationship with other people become uncertain because you lived 60 years, no one ever punched you. One day at work, you got punched, right? So it impacts every aspect of your life, even your trust of people. You're not trusting it.
Of the world.
Absolutely, your perception of the world changes. So when you say what kind of uncertainty, I'm like every aspect, right? So what we need to bring back to this person's life is certainty in routine. Is certainty, and is saying that look, that was just one incident. The world has not changed much, right? You just got a glimpse of the dark side of it. Right? But the world has always been the same. Tomorrow is going to be the same. It's going to be the same, right? So that uncertainty. Anyway, he said uncertainty. I said, okay. So obviously, if someone was there to help you and tell you how does the process look like, would it help? And then he said, oh, yeah, Matt, because you made it so much easier. You explained everything in a very clear way. I got the sense. I said, no, I'm not talking about myself. Because we come in later. First, the insurer come in. The insurer come in, they say, this is the claim, we accepted it, and they send you a bunch of documents.
Well, hold on, shouldn't the first thing be doctors and employers?
Sorry, you're right. It was the doctor, obviously. It was the doctor, then the insurer. So I'm saying we come in a little bit later. So it doesn't matter how much. I wasn't talking about how much I have done for you. I was talking about, imagine we don't exist, and the insurer is handling the claim, right? So How did they communicate with you? He said, oh, by the way, my case manager, this is one of those examples that I'm saying, we are not always just criticizing the person. He said, my case manager was fantastic. I said, that's great to hear.
Hold on. What's the name? Let's compliment the
well,
people that are
sure,
good.
I'm not sure if it is correct to mention it, but we are saying good things. So
exactly.
Her name, she was from the DXC insurer, and her name was Mahan, something like that. And she was fantastic. She was always available. I reached out to her. I asked questions. And this is a gentleman who likes to know, right? He takes a proactive approach to his recovery, right? So he wants to know. So having that person was important. I said, I know that as well, because several times you told me, Mahan was very good. You said, your doctor is very good. You said, I am very good. No, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about the initial communication, the written communication. Do you think it's sufficient to give you some certainty or some understanding of the process? He said, no, not even close. I said, but I know that they send email, they send attachments, documents, your rights and everything. He said, what's the point? They send the document, it's like 50 pages. If I was going to read that document, I would be a university lecturer. I wouldn't, right? So
it's like those online things. Like, do you agree?
Absolutely.
Private statements.
And then again, you remember this person been going through so much. You're not going to sit down and read 50 pages. And even if they read, so these are the things that we discussed. I said, look, I totally agree with you. I think this is one of the first steps. You go to your doctor said you're injured. Claim starts from there. Right? Then the insurer is the first point of contact. They reach out to you and say, oh, you have a claim, right? I think insurer is really have to try to make this process as simple as possible for them and make sure that they understand the system, right? To remove that uncertainty, to remove that constant state of anxiousness. What is next?
Maybe fear as well. Fear plays as well.
Of course. So I'm saying that step is very important, and that one is very cheap. That's why I think one of the biggest reforms that they have to make is the automated communication has to make sense for two reasons. One, as you know, first of all, we live in Australia. Second, in the context of injury, injury is more prevalent among a certain socioeconomic population, right? So we get a lot of people that they are from overseas. Right, so English might not be their language, right? And it's not just that they just moved to the country or recently moved. They have so many balls in the air. They are dealing with so many things that the mental capacity is not there to come and read a document, right? That's one thing.
And more importantly, they never had anything similar to that.
No, they didn't.
Back in their own country.
Absolutely, you're right. That's another thing, right? So, and then they receive that communication. First of all, the language might be a barrier. The other thing is, language might be a barrier. The other thing is, let's say the language is not a barrier. If you're a well-read person, you don't have a problem. If I give you a very detailed technical document about a field that you have no idea, it doesn't matter. You can understand the words. Yeah. They're all in English. You can understand it, but you can't understand what it's talking about.
I think even if you translate it to whatever English,
absolutely their own language, still they're not going to understand it. Still, because it has jargons, it has things, and it's long. It's long.
Exactly.
It's like this is the process. This is the process,
and it doesn't exist over there. So like I actually had a personal experience with that when we dealt with a bunch of Chinese immigrant injured workers, and we're trying to explain what our job is.
They don't get it.
I don't get it.
Correct.
I'm like, I'm trying to find words. I'm like, searching Google Translate.
Correct.
Nothing.
I'll give you another example. I think I don't have any problem understanding written communication, right? I was involved in our building with the strata plan and building management. Everything that goes under the strata scheme, I can understand the words, but I don't understand anything about it. So I had to pull out and I said, look, sorry, I don't understand it. I don't have any difficulty understanding English, but I just don't understand these concepts, because it's not my job. I'm not familiar with it, and they are not written in an easy to understand. It's like law, right? Law is pretty easy in my opinion. Law is easy, right? Yeah. It's easy. Everything is written, right? So there is no
little bit of ambiguity.
The ambiguity to me it comes from the language.
Yeah.
If you write it in a easy language, most people can understand law. 90% of people can understand. The reason only 10% understand is because of the language that is being used. So I'm saying the first step in workers' compensation to make a change, to me, that which is cheap. It's free, to be honest.
Absolutely. More information. Why not?
Absolutely. And I give you an example of how I know this is not working and the information is not provided. As you know, one of the things in the workers' comp or CTP is that you have the right to choose your treatment provider, right? It's a human right, so it exists, and it exists under the schemes that is workers' compensation and CTP. Very simple, very basic. Anyone can understand it. You know, I would say 90% of my clients, they have no idea.
Absolutely not.
They have no idea,
Yeah.
right? So now I'm asking, have they been told? Has it been eliminated, this information? I think crucial piece of information, has it been eliminated on purpose? Hasn't been shared with them? Or they put it in a 50-page document written in font number 5 that no one notice it or understand what it is? I think it has to be font 20 at the beginning of the letter, says you can choose your treatment provider.
But here's the thing, though. I think if they start doing that, then the system might collapse as well.
Why would it collapse?
Because referrals were going everywhere. We weren't, well, at least some people won't have control over where what happens next. Because I think, for any system to actually work really well is that predictability is there. Meaning, if something happens, X happens, you want Y to happen and then Z to happen afterwards. If we actively tell everyone that, wouldn't that make predictability much lower than what it is now?
Well, let's think about it this way. First of all, just because it may have a negative aspects to it or some downside to it doesn't mean that we have to hide something as simple and basic as that, right? So that's important, right? We may have something, but is there right? Right, so we have to share with them. The other thing, look at the positives of it, right? How many times we have heard, I go to this GP, but I don't think in our area they get a lot of injured workers and they have no idea about the workers' compensation process.
Times.
How many times we got that,
Too many
right?
times.
And how many times I have seen the recovery has been hindered or derailed because of the doctor is a doctor, he understands medicine, but he doesn't understand the scheme that he's working
claims,
in.
the paperwork.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
And why he doesn't? Because you have to remember the GPs, they don't have to be CERA approved. They don't have to be approved by CERA, unlike the allied health providers, right? The reason I think that's very important is because under the scheme that you are working, you have to have some basic understanding of the scheme because this is the scheme that is paying you. So you have to know what space you are working in.
That's logic.
You can't just say, well, I'm a doctor, that's good enough.
Therefore, I know everything.
Yeah, they know everything. No, you don't understand claim, right? So I think that's important. So how many times I have seen the client that goes, I don't think my doctor understands the claim. I don't think the doctor knows what to do. And we say, look, you know that you can find a doctor who has experience with workers' compensation. And I have seen this so many times that if I get injured today, and if I go to the GP next door, first question I would ask do you deal with workers' compensation claims? If he goes like, yeah, maybe one every 3 months, I'm like, no, thank you. No, thank you. Right? Right? Or another example is they go to physiotherapy. They go like, I said, how's it going? Do you benefit from physiotherapy? And the client says, look, it's been 12 months I'm going. I'm like, okay, that's what I'm asking. Sometimes you have to go for 12 months or 2 years, but do you feel any progress? They're like, no, to be honest, I don't think, maybe physiotherapy is not for me, or maybe this guy is not doing the right job. And I'm like, it happens. It happens, you know what I'm saying? And I know that for a fact because when I was injured and I was receiving physiotherapy, the guy, I don't know, he was lazy or something. He would attach me to a machine that it was pulling me. It was looking like a torture machine. And every time I end up with more pain, which to the point that I went there 4 times and I stopped going there, right? But it's important to know that if you stop going there, you have the right to go and find a physiotherapist who is compassionate, who know what they are doing, and who's actually going to spend time with you.
Or subject matter, basically how specialists work, right? If you injured your I don't know, like take neck or something. You don't go and, look for a plastic surgeon or something.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm saying it's like a mechanic. Not all the mechanics are good.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm a psychologist. I can't help everyone. Right? So if a client come and see me for 8 sessions and we are not progressing, I would reevaluate it and I say, look, maybe my method not
Doesn't
working
work.
for this person. Right? It's just there is no therapeutic alliance. It's not working. And it's time to go and try another provider, right? But most of clients, they don't do that because they don't know. They think it's either this one or nothing.
nothing at all.
Or nothing,
That's fair.
right? So,
Yeah.
and you tell me that is not delaying the progress, because with anything that we are doing, we have to be able to assess it after a while and see what is the outcome. If you're going day in, day out, weekly, you're going to physiotherapists and there's absolutely no change in 6 months' time, right? There's something going on here. Either it's not the right treatment, either it's not the right physiotherapist, either the injured worker not following the advice of the treatment team and not doing the exercises at home. But at that point, we have to ask what is going on, right? There is no point spending all this money and time and continuing on something that is not working. So that's why I say that is very important for them to know, and they can take charge of their own recovery. They have to. Sometimes I ask them, as a rehab consultant, I ask them, how's it going? Is physiotherapy working? Is, hydrotherapy working? Is the psychology working, right? Sometimes I notice that this is the first time the client is being asked and he never thought, maybe I should actually be actively thinking, what's the point of dragging me to physiotherapy if it's not working?
No way.
Right?
Really?
They have to. No, they don't. They don't, because this is another thing. That's why I say the workers' comp system has to be designed in a way that it is a good system. Again, we are lucky to have it, and it has a bad name compared to what actually happening. And I think we have to design it in a way that we gain people's trust again, right? The injured workers' trust. The injured worker should not see the insurer as the enemy, which is not the enemy.
They're not.
They're paying for everything.
Exactly.
How can they be enemy? People may not know, and I don't have the exact figures. The cost of each claim is in thousands of dollars. You know that. Who's paying for that? The insurer is paying for that, approving all these services and everything. No, they are not the enemy. But it's a shame that after doing all that for you, you still feel that you can't trust them. That's part of the training. Gain their trust. Know that I'm not your enemy. We are a team, right? I'm helping you to recover, right? That again comes back to the training. I'm spending thousands of dollars on you and you still see me as enemy? How's that possible?
Yeah.
How's that possible? And don't get me wrong, when that trust is broken, it raises so many issues. There is the issue of you are not cooperating, basically. The injured worker detach themselves from the treating team, start suspecting everyone. They are not compliant with treatment. So that trust is very important, in my opinion.
I actually have an experience with this specific thing. I remember having a fella came through our doors, and every single time I would be on the phone with him, he would be saying, "I'm getting investigated. I've got a private investigator looking after me." And then actually, I try to calm him. I'm like, chances are it's not going to happen that often. At least not that often. Okay,
You're right.
But he was
that's
anxious.
the point. That's the point. If you are not investigating, why the person should feel that you are investigating?
Yeah.
You have done something to break that trust.
Yeah.
You have done something. You broken that trust. You're right. So many times they ask me, "Are you recording me?" I'm like, "Why would I record you? I don't need to record. Why would I be recording you? And why would you care anyway?"
Exactly.
Right? Because they have that distrust of everyone. So the moment you get injured, we go in and we have to show that, look, I'm here to help you. I'm not your enemy.
How do you think they should do it? What's your opinion? Because sure, we don't know anything, right? I think that we don't know anything at all. But if you were in charge of that, how would you do it?
I would say first it has to be early, right? As you discussed it in your previous podcast session, that it has to be early intervention, right? You can't say, okay, I hear that you're injured, sit at home and just be upset and distressed and in pain, I'll get to it, right? Sometimes time is very important. Let's say it's a broken bone. You can wait for a week. You have to do it straight away. But when it comes to psychological injury, we are like, you can wait. You're just a little bit upset, right? No, get in quickly, because it's not about whether they need to receive that treatment right now. The question is they have to feel that the support is there. That's why get in early. So they don't have to feel that there is no one to help them, right? Again, it's a new experience, injured for the first time. Doctor written, I can't go to work, right? But then no one is telling me what's next. So what do you want me to do? Sit at home and do nothing? So it's important to get in early and provide them with information.
So both doctors and case managers?
Look, I don't think doctors, you can expect much from the doctors, because that's the thing. One is, we discussed that some of them, they don't even know the process, right? Yeah. The other thing is, don't get me wrong, some of them are very helpful, and coming from the doctor has a big impact, because, it's coming from the place of authority, trust, obviously, right? But can't expect much from them when they have to like say the session was 15 minutes and they have 15 clients waiting outside. We can't sit here and have a heart-to-heart and I explain everything to you, right? So I don't think it's really on the doctor's shoulder, right? It falls onto the first step, again, falls onto claim managers. Claim managers, they have to reach out and say, hey, look, I received your claim, and let me explain it a little bit to you. Not all of it, the first steps that you need. And I want you to know that the support is there and we're working on it, and I'm going to refer you to a rehab team, and they're going to work on your treatment. We're going to bring all your treatment team together. That assurance and reassurance, I think it goes a long way. So you know that you are not alone.
Yep.
Right? One of the things that people thinking, one of the things that, what would you think is one of the biggest concerns of an injured worker who cannot go to work? One is, what's the extent of my injury and is it going to get better? Right? The other one is, how I'm going to make a living if I can't work.
That is true.
Right? I think it's very important to call them and say, look, don't worry about it too much. You are covered, right? For this period, you are covered. So for the next 13 weeks, I don't want you to worry about money. The money is coming in. You worry about getting better. Right? So that's what early intervention is to me, providing information, not just running and providing treatment, right? A person is just, look, I don't like to, as a psychologist, I don't like to provide treatment straight away. They're not in a position to receive treatment, right? I'm talking about anxiety, and the client is worried about how I'm going to pay my mortgage. Yeah. What do you think I can do? I'm not a financier. I'm not a banker. I can't tell them, don't worry, we cover your mortgage, but I can't provide any of that assurance, right? But also I can't do my job working on their anxiety, right? So early intervention to me is not providing treatment straight away or early. It means getting in early. Getting in early, and more first and foremost, provide them with information. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Transparency information. That's probably like the way to go.
What is the information is power?
Yeah.
You can't keep the person in dark.
And you won't feel the fear if you know exactly what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Staying in the dark is the worst thing. I think it's one of the biggest barriers to recovery, honestly. Because we want you to, there are two ways that you recover. Right? Whether physical injury or psychological injury, I think there are two pathways to recovery. One is through behavior activation. Behavior activation is when you start doing the things that you used to do, but you can't do anymore, or you feel like you can't do anymore. So we have to take baby steps. You have to do them again. There is no magic pill. I can give you a pill and you start feeling normal again tomorrow. You have to start slowly. The other pathway is the cognitive pathway. Right? So maybe it even comes before the behavioral activation. So if you think you can't do it, they say what they say, if you think you can't, you're right. If you think you can, you're right. Right? Right? So if you think that because of my injury, because of my symptoms, I can't do that, that needs reframing, because these are the things that you were doing to begin with, right? So it needs cognitive reframing to go like, but why wouldn't I, why can't I do it?
Yeah.
Right? Again, I'll give you a very clear example. This is personal experience, which I think it goes a long way. When I was injured and they were doing this work trial, you remember, they come and say, oh, go and work in this place and maybe they have employment for you and stuff. I complied. I went there. Obviously, they didn't have a job for me. It was just free labor, basically. But it had a massive impact, right? It had that, first of all, behavioral activation.
Yep.
I went to work, I moved, I realized that, I think I have to sit on the couch all day because of my back pain, but I've been standing up for 5 hours.
And then you can do it.
Yeah.
And then you tell yourself,
so
now
I
I can do
activated
it.
and my body got better. Second, I was thinking genuinely I can't do it. And through doing it, reframed it. And I realized, no, I can do it. Well, yeah, I was in pain when I was sitting and I was in pain when I was at work. But what difference does it make? You're in pain anyway. Might as well go and do something about it, right?
Exactly.
Right? So I think giving them those information, right? Because the impact of the information is on their cognitive pathway to recovery. Understanding that, look, I am supported. This is the system. These are my obligations. This is how much support is available, right? We don't want them to overestimate or underestimate what's available to them. We want to be realistic, as you said, transparent, right? We want to tell them what's available, what can be done. So I think information, as I said, is very cheap, right? You can have a system overhaul for very, very cheap. Have an application for them. Let them do modules, tiny bite-sized modules. Don't send them a PDF that is 80 pages. No one gonna read it. And when they read it, they're not gonna understand it. Have it in their own language. Have it jargon-free, right? I'm not saying it's for free, but I'm saying I think this is the cheapest step they can take into reforming the system.
You know what, though? I think we need to take an initiative as a company. I think I need to commit ourselves to creating that module system.
Correct.
And then releasing it.
Correct, because as employment, as a rehab consultant, we try to do that. We try to provide that information. But sometimes the clients are not in the mood. It works different for everyone. Someone likes to read, someone likes
Videos.
likes to see. But it has to be bite-sized because, as I said, remember, most of them are not in the mood. They don't have the mental capacity. They are preoccupied. They're stressed. So it has to be designed in a way that it has a pull, or at least it's encouraging. Let's say an example of encouraging is I give you something you read, doesn't make sense to you. I go like, do you want this page? Do you want the volume 2? You go like, no, thank you, I'm good, right? But I give you something that you read, you enjoy it, there's a pull, and I say, do you want to read the rest of it? You go like, yeah, why not, right? I think it has to be, if you don't understand, you're not gonna read it, right? Not many people are going to sit down and say, let me see what this means now.
Yeah, and then check the dictionary.
Absolute dictionary or use AI or something. Many people won't do that. Many people, it's either I understand or I don't understand. If I don't understand, I'm going to avoid it.
Yeah.
And that avoidance is detrimental to things. You may say, okay, it's their fault for avoiding it, but wasn't it your fault for giving them something that encourages?
Doesn't work.
Yeah. So I think that's, and I agree with you. You know, we can take initiative and say, look, once the claim starts, as I said, sometimes we're coming later, right? So hopefully it's not too late.
No.
You know,
I think we'll release it and let the insurance company copy us. Whatever it is, I don't mind.
Even then, read this, educate yourself. Because once you educate yourself, I have a client calls me once a week, about an hour, right? Questions, thousands of questions. Yeah, some of it stems from his neurotic personality and aggravated anxiety as a result of injury, right? But he has questions genuinely. What if this happens? Then in this scenario, what's going to happen like this? Then it's going to happen like that, right? I wish this information was available to them. You know, so they don't have that many questions, because what does that tell you? It tells you the brain is preoccupied with questions and what ifs, and it's not focusing on, it's a psychological injury, it's not focusing on relaxation, mindfulness, trying to take your anxiety under control.
It's just how to get better.
Adding on to that rather than trying to help them.
Oh, no, that's deep.
I think so. I think so. I'm a deep person.
No, that's good. I think let's call it there.
I think so.
It's been a pleasure. Freaking hell. That was amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for spending an hour with us talking to Matt. It's been insightful. If you like the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.